A little bit Ronald Reagan, and I really liked him.
I am, in fact, the legitimate heir of the Reagan movement.
Mitt Romney understands, like Ronald Reagan did.
Ronald Reagan flew this plane.
But the Republican Party, I mean, besides Rudy Giuliani, Bush likes to dress up. He likes to be a cowboy or Iceman from Top Gun. And they have something very gay, excuse me, going on with Ronald Reagan. I mean, they love Ronald Reagan in a way that's just gay. I'm sorry. But I think they want to put him on a stamp so they can lick his backside. Well, seriously, I mean...
So why do conservatives love Ronald Reagan so much? As a young man, Ronald Reagan had no political aspirations and became a B-list movie actor in Hollywood as a staunching Democrat. Over time, he progressed into a conservative political career which landed him the California governorship in 1967. Learning hard skills such as communication and a combination of a backlash against the Democrats in 1980, Reagan was able to secure the presidency from President Carter in the 1980 election. Going into the presidency, Reagan set the tone of his administration by stating,
"It is time to check and reverse the growth of government, which shows signs of having grown beyond the consent of the governed. It is no coincidence that our present troubles parallel and are proportionate to the intervention and intrusion in our lives that result from unnecessary and excessive growth of government."
The era preceding Reagan's was a time of economic horror and despair. Hyperinflation, high-priced oil, record unemployment, crippling inflation, and competition from other Western markets such as Japan and West Germany plagued the nation. Coming into the White House, Ronald Reagan had a comprehensive plan to fix the crippling economic problems, which we called the Economic Recovery Tax Act of 1981. This bill called for a complete 180 of all the U.S.'s policies up until that time. It called for 4 basic changes. 1. An across-the-board tax cut so people have more disposable income. 2. Reduction in government spending to have a bigger and balanced government budget. 3. A deregulation of markets to have lower prices. And 4. Reduce inflation by tightening the money supply. Most of Ronald Reagan's policies were a big success. With Americans with more money in pocket from lower taxes and jobs increasing from lower interest rates, the United States began an economic boom that would remain uninterrupted for the next 8 years. Riding on a wave of popularity, Reagan was heard quoting, "I knew my policies worked when they stopped calling them Reaganomics." Although his economic policies were not all successful. In his best intention, Reagan tried to balance the budget so that the U.S. would spend less and save more, but his threefold expansion of defense crushed that dream. His defense policy was designed to outspend the Soviet Union, our long-standing rivals, and spend them into bankruptcy. Although this expansion won the Cold War without having to use any of the weapons he built, Reagan placed the country into a deficit that would come back to haunt us. Under Reagan, poverty also increased the levels from the 1950s, and he wasn't able to solve the savings and loans crisis that made many banks fail during his presidency. Ronald Reagan is the typical conservative icon. The reasons that conservatives love him so much was because he was the successful flagship of their ideals. No one did it better than Reagan. Reagan was nicknamed the Great Communicator because of his charming demeanor and his natural talent of speech-making. During speeches, he liked to connect with the audience and tell jokes, such as,
1 out of 7 families in the Soviet Union own automobiles. There's a 10-year wait that this man, he laid down his money, and then the fella that was in charge said to him, "Okay, come back in 10 years and get your car." And he said, "Morning or afternoon?" And the fella behind the counter said, "Well, 10 years from now, what difference does it make?" And he said, "Well, the plumber's coming in the morning."
His ability to work between party lines was unparalleled to any modern Republican. His legislation was commonly introduced by Democrats, and even though they sometimes didn't agree with him, they liked his charming and easy stature. The people who experienced this cooperation between Democrats in Congress and Democratic voters were nicknamed Reagan Democrats. Voters of all political affiliations experienced confidence in Reagan and voted him back in a landslide in 1984. Reagan always appealed to voters as someone who understood the American way. and was a strong supporter of its values. He was able to single-handedly solve many of the economic problems that crippled the country for decades. The American people saw a great leader in Reagan who was able to jump across party lines at will and get the job done. This great leadership is why he is so highly regarded today. For this project, my course themes are power, authority, and leadership, because Reagan is considered to be one of the greatest American leaders in history. His leadership was able to unite the country and bring back a prosperous and peaceful nation. The American dream, because President Reagan symbolized American values and support that made him the lovable leader we know him as today. He brought back the American dream by creating more jobs and solving our stagflating economy.
Doc, I'm from the future.
Tell me, future boy, who's president of the United States in 1985?
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, the actor? Then who's vice president? Jerry Lewis?